How many surgeries did you have?
So many.
10, 20?
I'm pretty sure 30
30?
more. Because I had multiple eye muscle surgeries, multiple leg surgeries, multiple throat surgeries. I don't have salivary glands.
To fully understand the truth surrounding a complex crime, it's important to go back to the beginning. What's the truth about Gypsy Rose Blanchard's childhood? What is she seemingly trying to cover up? What happened as she became a teen and a young adult living with her mom? We took a deep dive into what life was really like for Gypsy, including the unverified medical records, and we'll be putting all the puzzle pieces together for the first time. It sure tells a totally different story from what Gypsy has previously reported. The devil is in the details when it comes to Gypsy Rose Blanchard. Welcome back to Becca Scoops. My partner is a veteran detective, and I'm Becca, a former psych RN who also worked in the ICU. This is part 3 in our series on Gypsy Rose Blanchard. As we covered in part 1 and 2 of our series, Gypsy claims she is the victim of heinous and systematic abuse at the hands of her mother, Dee Dee. Gypsy has reported she had over 30 surgical procedures, including multiple leg, eye, and throat surgeries. Is that true? Here's what we found. It all started in the year 2000 when Gypsy was around 8 years old. Gypsy's dad, Rod, had left Dee Dee and married Christy, who Gypsy now lovingly calls her stepmother. It's been reported Dee Dee was a woman scorned, especially after Rod and Christy have a son and daughter together. When Gypsy was still very young, it's reported that Dee Dee used Gypsy's alleged health issues, including sleep apnea, seizures, and feeding issues, to guilt-trip Rod, hoping he would come back into the relationship. Reports state Gypsy was born premature, according to the records, and had some issues stemming from a chromosomal disorder. After Rod refuses to come back, Dee Dee would describe him as a deadbeat dad and a drug addict. We also found reports that Dee Dee harbored anger toward Rod's new life in marriage. This left Dee Dee as a single mom with limited skills and a prior history of petty crimes, with job prospects which were slim at best. According to verified reports, after a motorcycle accident in the year 2000, Gypsy is put in the wheelchair by Dee Dee, even though she did not need that level of care. Gypsy had brush burn on her legs from the accident, and Dee Dee is alleged to have aggressively yelled at doctors demanding a wheelchair for Gypsy. Dee Dee takes it upon herself to track down a used wheelchair and obtains one, in addition to a walker. According to the Las Vegas Review-Journal, a few months later, in 2001, Gypsy was named honorary queen of a Mardi Gras parade in New Orleans. She was chosen by the Ronald McDonald House, who reported Gypsy had spina bifida. Of course, that was one big fat lie. Also in 2001, an article from a newspaper in Thibodaux, Louisiana, Dee Dee told reporters that Gypsy Blanchard was, quote, vision and hearing impaired. She can no longer walk, is fed through a feeding tube, and has some brain damage from seizures. These comments about Gypsy's condition are mostly lies. She could walk, she had no brain damage, and no one except Dee Dee has ever reported seeing Gypsy have a seizure. Dee Dee continues, we've been going to the Ronald McDonald House since she was 3 days old, she said. The article adds, her mother teaches her at home, but she attends CCD classes at St. Joseph's Co-Cathedral in Thibodaux. We know that statement must have some truth because we have Gypsy's portrait in her first communion dress. For Catholics, children received their first communion around 2nd grade. In the article, Dee Dee boasts about being treated like VIPs with one-on-one time with actors from Xena, Warrior Princess, and Hercules, The Legendary Journeys. Dee Dee gushes about meeting these actors, Ted Raimi and Bruce Campbell. Dee Dee claims these celebs spent the whole weekend pushing Gypsy in her wheelchair at the convention. Quote, "They pushed her around in her wheelchair the whole time and talked with her," Dee Dee said. "They were so nice." Gypsy's famous friends, as well as the show's producers, email her at least once a month, Dee Dee claimed. This example of Dee Dee procuring special treatment based on Gypsy's alleged disabilities, Gypsy as the honorary queen, staying at the Ronald McDonald House, along with Hollywood actors treating Dee Dee and Gypsy as VIPs, is something we now see in Gypsy's post-prison behavior. Her need to meet Taylor Swift, messaging Kim Kardashian, and speed dialing TMZ. Gypsy has the same unhealthy fascination and deep-seated psychological need to be recognized as a celebrity, just as her mother did. Did Gypsy endure over 30 surgeries? Was she medically abused? Why is Gypsy's medical history shrouded in so much mystery? To answer those questions, we broke down Gypsy's medical treatments into two categories: diagnostic tests to rule out certain diseases and procedures/surgeries to treat certain symptoms or illnesses. For our purposes, we are going to focus solely on the procedures and surgeries, which have been a point of mystery, speculation, and contention for so many.
How many surgeries did you have?
So many.
10, 20?
I'm pretty sure 30 more. Because I had multiple eye muscle surgeries, multiple leg surgeries, multiple throat surgeries. I don't have salivary glands.
According to the unverified medical records we viewed, along with Gypsy's own statements, we can further break down Gypsy's evasive treatments into two categories. Category 1, her eye surgeries, and Category 2, procedures on her gastrointestinal tract or GI tract, and one more diagnostic test called a muscle biopsy. There is no doubt that Gypsy had eye issues and needed the surgeries. In fact, Gypsy has admitted the eye surgeries were needed. That leaves the real debate and mystery, all revolving around 3 evasive procedures on her GI tract and one diagnostic test, the muscle biopsy. Those procedures are allegedly 1. 2004 salivary gland removal, 2. 2001 a gastroreflex laparoscopic procedure, and 3. 2001 placement and maintenance of her GI tube/feeding tube. But wait, you might be thinking, that can't be right. So this alleged horrendous medical abuse adds up to 3 procedures and 1 diagnostic test? Something isn't adding up. That's exactly what we thought. Here's how it breaks down. Gypsy had salivary gland removal along with a type of gastroreflex procedure called a Nissen fundoplication that is done laparoscopically. It's reported as a minimally invasive surgical procedure that can treat significant reflux in children. Gypsy referred to that as, quote, a surgery to make me not throw up anymore, end quote. She also had the feeding tube placed, also called a G-tube. Those 3 procedures all involve the GI tract. The only other evasive procedure/surgery Gypsy had that can be considered quote-unquote abusive allegedly was a test called a muscle biopsy that doctors ordered to rule out muscular dystrophy in 2001. We must note that muscle biopsies can be quite painful. According to our research and Gypsy's own diagram from her book, that sums up all of her alleged abusive surgeries/evasive procedures. That's it. In fact, Gypsy's own diagram says, quote, drawing a diagram of my scars for Ryan was my way of being vulnerable and intimate, end quote. Here we have a close-up version of Gypsy's scars, which validates our research. 3 procedures, numbered 1, 2, 3, and 1 diagnostic test, number 4. She admits to 4 scars, 3 from procedures and 1 from a diagnostic test to her thigh. However, that's not what she told Dr. Phil.
Because I had multiple eye muscle surgeries, multiple leg surgeries, multiple throat surgeries. I don't have salivary glands, not these anymore because they were removed.
She did have minor issues like ear tubes, asthma issues, and other normal childhood illnesses, but nowhere near 30 surgeries, even if you include the eye procedures she admits she needed. She never had chemotherapy. However, we need to mention that medical child abuse can be seen when a caretaker deceives physicians into running diagnostic tests that are not needed. Gypsy also underwent non-invasive testing and procedures like a sleep study, nerve conduction tests, CT scans, X-rays. We did not cover those since we concluded they were not invasive and thus can be argued as not abusive inasmuch as they stand alone. Was there a reason for those diagnostic tests? More on that later.
Frequently jet sets across the country, ball games, galas, the most magical place on earth, Disney World.
Make-A-Wish, we're taking her down to Orlando, all expenses paid and everything.
Right now, I'm in Cinderella's castle eating some royal mashed potatoes.
She even got to meet country superstars Miranda Lambert and then husband Blake Shelton.
Miranda Lambert came to Springfield a few times, and I think she gave Dee Dee and Gypsy money.
Yes, she did. Look at this $3,500 check from the singer's personal account. But that wasn't all.
What must I do?
Check her out posing with her favorite actors, Elijah Wood and Sean Astin.
In 2005, when Gypsy is 14 years old, she and her mother are airlifted to Missouri from Louisiana, claiming to be Hurricane Katrina survivors. That same year, Gypsy undergoes a physical therapy evaluation. This is the first incident where we can verify, according to the unofficial medical reports, Gypsy is taking part in the medical con. In 2005, when Gypsy is 14, the physical therapy report reveals Gypsy is indeed actively taking part in the exam. The medical record reads, quote, "Patient reports she can't transfer herself from her wheelchair. Patient reports she can propel herself only 50 feet in the wheelchair," end quote. Additionally, notes in the unverified medical record say she moves her legs as if she is not paralyzed at times. These are observations from medical personnel. During an ABC interview, Gypsy claimed she never spoke to doctors. Quote, "Mom would say, 'Don't talk, just play with your stuffed animal, and we'll do something fun after,'" end quote, Gypsy recalled. Not only was she talking during this physical therapy exam, she was also falsely reporting she couldn't move her lower extremities and then faked the testing appearing paralyzed. We must stress that there is no doubt Gypsy was groomed by Dee Dee to take part in the medical fraud, and as a child, that wasn't her choice. However, Gypsy told Dr. Phil she had no idea about the con until she was 19 years old. That clearly does not match up with her medical records.
Nothing was done.
When did you figure this out?
I started having an inkling when I turned 19.
Except according to records, medical professionals wrote she was malingering by 14 years old. This is about the same time as this video, which netizens evaluated, claiming the 14-year-old Gypsy Rose pretends she can't move her legs in the snow, but clearly she is faking it. Fast forward to 2007, when Gypsy is again reported to be malingering by medical professionals. She is 16 years old. Malingering is mentioned by medical personnel in Gypsy's records after they catch her pretending or exaggerating hearing loss. Gypsy has always maintained she had no idea about the con.
And that you being sick was necessary to keep up what she built? Because you got a house from Habitat for Humanity, you got donations, you got different things from people for being sick.
Mm-hmm.
So that was a source of income for her, right?
It was, yes. And I had no idea that I was a part of that.
You didn't know that you were a cash cow.
No.
Then, in November of 2007, Dee Dee reports Gypsy has cerebral palsy. Tests are run again, and all come back negative. However, when they send Gypsy's blood work to the lab to make sure her seizure medication is at therapeutic range, the doctor reports, quote, her Tegretol level was undetectable, end quote. Although the lab didn't test for other drugs, it's safe to assume if she wasn't taking her seizure medication, there's a really good possibility she wasn't taking any other prescription drugs either. This contradicts Gypsy's prior statements during her interview on ABC. Quote, there are certain illnesses that I knew I didn't have. I knew that I didn't need the feeding tube. I knew that I could eat. I knew that I could walk. But I did believe my mother when she said that I had leukemia, Gypsy said. She adds, because I was taking lots of medications, end quote. There is no evidence Dee Dee was giving Gypsy lots of medication, at least not since they arrived in Missouri. In fact, lab reports allegedly do not back that up. Gypsy was later, in 2013, prescribed Keppra for her so-called seizures that no one has witnessed besides Dee Dee. The heat is turned up in 2007. Gypsy is now 16 years old. Dee Dee is accused in the medical records of being a poor historian. In other words, they suspect Dee Dee is being untruthful. Her story doesn't add up. This is because Dee Dee is claiming Gypsy has this wild medical history, including leukemia and muscular dystrophy and epilepsy. Doctors are baffled at this point. They don't understand why Gypsy can't walk. Dee Dee and Gypsy can't get away from the fact that Dee Dee has told everyone Gypsy is paralyzed from the waist down. This one issue, the glaring lie about being paralyzed, must have caused a good amount of turmoil. In the Pink House on Volunteer Way, Gypsy is getting older and it's tougher to sell her as a young child. Dee Dee might be panicking. Gypsy might be panicking. What type of conversations were going on inside the Habitat for Humanity home at this point? Gypsy also told Dr. Phil that her mother did not allow her to walk inside the house at all.
Did she ever catch you walking?
She did a couple times.
And what did she say or do?
She got so upset with me, she would punish me so bad. Like, she started hitting me with a coat hanger.
Well, that is disproven by one of the doctors who ran neuromuscular tests on Gypsy.
That has not walked for 9 years, for years, she should have technically almost no muscles in her lower extremities. But she didn't have muscles that looked like normal. And she was able to support her body weight. I remember her standing.
This doctor also suggests in his notes Gypsy is purposefully giving the wrong answers to sensory tests to her legs. Gypsy gets accused in the medical records of faking it, and Dee Dee is seen as a poor historian. No doubt the mom and daughter duo felt this con's days might be numbered. By 2009, Gypsy is now 18 years old, and someone calls DCSF, or Child Protective Services, on Dee Dee. There are also allegations of criminal fraud reported to the Sheriff's Department. 2 officers, along with a social worker, make a surprise visit at the Pink House. They find Gypsy as, quote, childlike and slow, end quote. The officer notes, quote, possibly putting on an act. Daughter is an adult, end quote. Remember, most of the hospital visits and diagnostic testing slowed down around 2007, and surgeries really stopped around 2005. Nothing comes from the accusations. Gypsy's a legal adult. Case closed. However, we have to wonder what was the atmosphere in the Pink home. After the cops show up, do tensions rise between Dee Dee and Gypsy, believing they might be exposed as grifters? We do know at the time of Dee Dee's death, the Sheriff's Department found approximately $15,000 in the safe, along with a few uncashed donation checks from supporters. Gypsy had taken around $4,000 with her after she and Nick murdered Dee Dee. This was always a murder/fraud investigation until it wasn't. In fact, this was alluded to by Sheriff Jim Arnott when he cautioned the public about giving donations to Gypsy, revealing there was money to cover Dee Dee's funeral, even if those funds were ill-gotten.
In the investigation, there were several $1,000s in cash stolen that she had in a safe. And we know that they received a lot of GoFundMe accounts. There was some other accounts set up and some other things that we're looking into. But as I said at the beginning, things are not always as they appear. We're going to look into everything. To be honest, the big thing here is we have the death and the murder of Dee Dee. So that's the main concern in getting justice for her. However, the reason why I laid out this information is that, number one, you all are unearthing it as we go. So I wanted to head that off and let you know that we're looking into it. But also, there is a lot of accounts set up to help Gypsy and pay for Dee Dee's funeral, when in fact there may be money that can handle that may not have been obtained in the correct way. But don't want anyone else to become a victim until we sort out what is going on.
This amount of cash flow might explain why Dee Dee wasn't pushing her luck by demanding medical tests or requesting many medical appointments after 2007. Why? The con is secure. The mom and daughter duo are known in the community and have a core group of supporters. When Dee Dee puts out a call for donation, these supporters come through every time. It's also in 2009 when one unverified story circulates about Gypsy, who was attending a sci-fi convention, is found in a compromised position in a hotel room with an unidentified older man. The little pink house has become a battlefield at this point. Gypsy wants to run around with older men, and Dee Dee feels she is losing her daughter. And they both know if people find out about the con, that Gypsy can walk, they will both be in trouble with the law. Now here's the twist in this complex case. When Gypsy was very young, she was diagnosed with a chromosomal disorder, but they didn't really know much else.
What's going on, and they had done some tests and found out she had a chromosome disorder that was causing all of her functions from developing, her digestive system and her muscular system.
Gypsy had some type of chromosomal disorder that was diagnosed when she was very young. But by 2011, medicine has advanced and they can now pinpoint the issues. One doctor notes Dee Dee really isn't interested in the disorder. She doesn't rush Gypsy to a doctor's appointment or the hospital, nor does she send out a Facebook post informing their supporters. She doesn't fundraise off the diagnosis. Additionally, all of those 3 evasive procedures we mentioned earlier can be treatments tied to symptoms seen in this chromosomal disorder called microdeletion 1q21.1. However, we caution this is all just speculation. Gypsy has admitted she has this condition, but claims she is part of the 75% who have no symptoms. Is that the truth? This microdeletion has a wide variety of symptoms. However, every single patient with this disorder is entirely unique. They all have very different presentations, different symptoms of the disorder, and in how it manifests in their bodies, depending on what gene is affected. Researchers have identified a gene called HYD1N. That gene deletion can be linked to head size, possum-like facial features, and high roof of the mouth. We found that tongue thrusting has been identified as a symptom that is found in Gypsy's alleged gene deletion. Here's why this case is so complex. Doctors were trying to solve Gypsy's biggest problem, why she couldn't walk, and that was always fakery at its finest by Dee Dee and Gypsy. When Gypsy is confronted to explain what extreme event pushed her over the edge to greenlight the murder of her mom, Gypsy says something many may have missed.
Tell me in your own words what happened that night.
Well, really, my mother and I had got into an argument 2 days before, and it was about my feeding tube. I'm like, I no longer need this feeding tube. Can we please have it removed? And she said no. And I had an upcoming surgery, and I didn't want to have it, so I asked her, please tell the doctor I don't need this surgery. I've had it 20 times before. Why do we have to have it again? And she's like, there's nothing I can do about it. The doctor wants it. And so I became very numb to Plan B.
Gypsy claims she tells her mom she wants the feeding tube gone. But you wouldn't kill your mom over a feeding tube, right? Gypsy isn't a child in 2015. At this point, she's a 23-year-old woman. Then, Gypsy thinks fast on her feet during this interview. She pivots away from the feeding tube story, knowing that makes no sense, and tells Dr. Phil she had an upcoming surgery. And when her mom refused to cancel this upcoming surgery, well, that was it. Dee Dee had to go. However, did you hear what she said? Gypsy said, I've had that 20 times before. What? What is she talking about?
And I had an upcoming surgery, and I didn't want to have it, so I asked her, please tell the doctor I don't need this surgery. I've had it 20 times before. Why do we have to have it again? And she's like, there's nothing I can do about it. The doctor wants it.
The truth is, there was no scheduled surgery. Gypsy had an appointment to have her feeding tube changed, something she had done many, many, many times before. Something so minor, many people do this at home. This isn't a surgery. In fact, it had been many years since Gypsy had any real surgery at this point. But she can't tell that to Dr. Phil. This murder has to be about horrendous, prolonged medical abuse at the hands of her mother. So she lies, again, allegedly.
And that you being sick was necessary to keep up what she built, because you got a house from Habitat for Humanity, you got donations, you got different things from people for being sick.
Mm-hmm.
So that was a source of income for her, right?
It was, yes. And I had no idea that I was a part of that.
You didn't know that you were a cash cow.
No.
Dee Dee got a house from Habitat for Humanity. They would have free trips here and there, free flights. She was getting some money from a couple celebrities. Her life was full of free stuff, I guess, fun stuff.
The Blanchard scammed many different charities and lied to many different charities across the U.S., including churches and support groups.
Dee Dee Blanchard was exaggerating her daughter's medical condition for financial gain.
You were diagnosed.
Gypsy recently said about her crime, quote, why I did it didn't matter, end quote. To most people, that's all that matters when it comes to a crime. It's how our justice system calculates how serious an offense truly is. Why you did it does matter. Was it self-defense? Was it an accident? Was it a crime of passion? Gypsy's crime was clearly premeditated, so the only reason she isn't in prison for life revolves around why she did it. So, for Gypsy, why she did it matters most of all. Gypsy's plea deal hinged on the mitigating factors, which were the alleged horrendous abuse she claims she endured at the hands of her mother. So yes, why Gypsy did it matters more than anything else. Whether you love Gypsy or loathe her, the real monster between mother and daughter might not have been Dee Dee, especially as she has been portrayed by so many. Did Dee Dee pull a con based on lying about illnesses Gypsy never had? Yes, she did. Did Dee Dee and Gypsy get trips, a home, and donations based on lies? Yes, they did. Was Gypsy abused by Dee Dee in any way? Yes. Making a child stay in a wheelchair for profit is abusive. Shaving her head as a ruse to make people believe Gypsy had cancer is abusive. However, if Gypsy's chromosomal disorder manifested with signs and symptoms that back up those GI tract procedures, then the degree of the abuse is considerably less than what has been previously reported in the media. Dee Dee's been utterly vilified as someone who made her child endure over 30 bogus surgeries, and Gypsy's the hero and the poor victim. When did Gypsy become Dee Dee's accomplice? According to law enforcement personnel close to the case, by the time Gypsy was 14, she was reporting being paralyzed and faking tests all on her own. By the time she turns 18, in the eyes of the law, she then becomes a full partner in the fraud. It's also safe to say that Dee Dee was not Mother of the Year, and she was a very flawed individual who came from a highly dysfunctional family. Law enforcement who worked closely on the case told us they always believed this was a case about a woman who wrongly used her child in a medical fraud, and at some point that child became an adult who duped an autistic individual to murder her mother. Additionally, we believe Dee Dee did love Gypsy. However, based on her poor employment history, limited income potential, and her prior criminal past, she fell into embellishing and lying about Gypsy for financial gain. Dee Dee thought she was giving Gypsy a good life, meeting celebs and being VIPs at events and at theme parks across the country. The truth about Gypsy's crime may have been summed up best by Abraham Lincoln, who said, quote, "Hypocrite, the man who murdered his parents and then pleaded for mercy on the grounds that he was an orphan," end quote. If Gypsy wants to end the speculation and really get the truth out there, we suggest she openly share all her medical records with a responsible, unbiased source of her choice. Only then can anyone be 100% certain that medical child abuse occurred. We suggest the best course of action is total transparency, especially if she wants to stay in the limelight. In the end, the truth always comes to light. Young women manipulating their paramours to murder parents isn't uncommon at all. It happens all too frequently. However, you know what is so rare it has never happened? Munchausen by proxy victims murdering their abuser. And that's according to Dr. Mark Feldman, who Gypsy mentions as a leading expert in her own case. Gypsy is claiming she is the very first Munchausen by proxy victim to ever murder their abuser. It's never happened in all the cases of Munchausen by proxy. So the question remains, is Gypsy just a rarity in the entire criminal justice world? Or was Dee Dee's demise never about escaping abuse at all? What do you think? Thanks for watching. If you enjoy our series on Gypsy Rose, please think about supporting our content by liking and subscribing. We read all the comments and really appreciate the feedback. Thanks again.